My husband cheated with his new co-worker after 8 years of marriage. It started with a memo about the new project. Project Phoenix, they called it. To me, it sounded like the kind of corporate jargon that meant we'd be burning out by December. Mark, my husband of 8 years, was ecstatic. He loved anything that gave him an excuse to stay late at the office, nurse his third cup of artisanal coffee, and avoid social gatherings. I had my suspicions, but I brushed them aside with the same enthusiasm he had for overtime. After all, what's a little extra work when you've got a steady paycheck and a man who still thinks rotating his desk counts as a romantic gesture? Mark and I met in college, bonding over shared classes and mutual disdain for cafeteria food. We graduated, got jobs, and married within 5 years. Life was predictable, which was both comforting and stifling. Mark worked in corporate finance, a field he was passionate about, while I pursued my dream of being a freelance graphic designer, a choice that granted me flexibility, but often left me wondering if I'd made the right decision. When Project Phoenix was announced, Mark was thrilled. "This is it, Laura, the big break," he said, his eyes gleaming with that familiar mix of ambition and caffeine-induced enthusiasm. I nodded, smiling supportively, though my gut twisted slightly. Extra work meant less time together, more stress about deadlines, and probably a few more evenings spent arguing over whether I should switch to his brand of organic almond milk. The first few weeks were manageable. Mark would come home, exhausted, but happy, recounting tales of spreadsheets and quarterly forecasts. I kept myself busy with my projects, occasionally venturing out to coffee shops to avoid the creeping loneliness of our too-quiet home. It was during one of these solo coffee shop missions that I first noticed the subtle shift. Emma was new to the company, a vibrant, energetic woman who seemed to inject life into the drab office environment. Mark was assigned to collaborate with her on Project Phoenix, and their interactions were always professional, but there was an undercurrent I couldn't quite place. They'd share inside jokes, exchange knowing glances, and sometimes I'd catch Mark lingering a bit too long in conversations that should have been strictly business. I tried to ignore it. Mark had always been close with his co-workers, especially his female colleagues. But Emma was different. There was an ease to their partnership that went beyond professional camaraderie. I found myself feeling uneasy, which was a new emotion for me, unsettled by something I couldn't pinpoint. The real revelation came one Saturday evening. I was cleaning out the guest room we had repurposed into a home office for me, trying to make space for a new client. As I moved a stack of papers, I noticed an envelope tucked behind a framed photo of us on our wedding day. Curious, I opened it, expecting perhaps a forgotten bill or an old tax document. Instead, I found a series of printed emails between Mark and Emma. At first, they were innocuous. Discussions about project deadlines, brainstorming sessions, the usual professional banter. But then, the tone shifted. There were compliments about each other's work, subtle flirtations, and, eventually, plans to meet outside of work hours for discussions that, in hindsight, seemed anything but professional. My heart sank. Betrayal is a peculiar emotion. It starts as a slow leak and culminates in a flood. I sat there, emails scattered around me, feeling a mix of anger, sadness, and a strange sense of clarity. Mark had been spending hours away from home, late nights that were supposed to be about career advancement, but were anything but. Confronting Mark was the next logical step, albeit a painful one. I decided to approach it calmly, wanting to hear his side without jumping to conclusions. To my relief, he admitted to the affair almost immediately. The conversation that followed was a whirlwind of explanations, apologies, and a barrage of emotions that left me reeling. Mark confessed that Emma was different. She made him feel appreciated in a way he hadn't in years. The long hours, the stress, the monotony, it had all eroded his sense of connection, both to his work and to me. With Emma, he felt understood, validated, and alive. It wasn't about the work, he insisted, but about finding someone who saw him for who he truly was, beyond the spreadsheets and financial models. I felt a mixture of anger and sadness. How had we let things deteriorate to this point? Had I been too absorbed in my projects, too detached from our life together? These questions plagued me as I grappled with the reality of Mark's infidelity. The days that followed were a blur. We tried to navigate the immediate aftermath, attending counseling sessions that felt more like formalities than genuine attempts at reconciliation. I was forced to confront my own shortcomings and the ways in which our relationship had grown complacent. Mark, on the other hand, seemed torn between his desire to salvage our marriage and the allure of the new connection he'd found. Meanwhile, Emma's role in the affair couldn't be ignored. She was Mark's colleague, and the office buzzed with rumors and speculation. Some saw Emma as the catalyst for Mark's unhappiness, while others pitied her, assuming she was a victim of a loveless marriage. The truth was far more complicated. Emma was struggling in her own right. Her job was demanding, her personal life a series of failed relationships, and Mark had provided her with a sense of stability she'd been craving. As I delved deeper into the situation, I couldn't help but reflect on the ethical dilemmas we all faced. Mark was betraying the vows we'd taken, yet Emma was not entirely blameless either. Both of us were navigating our own insecurities, seeking validation in ways that were ultimately destructive. It was a tangled web of human emotions, desires, and flaws. Humor became my coping mechanism. I found myself making jokes about the absurdity of the situation, how our marriage had transformed into a sitcom episode, complete with plot twists and a cast of supporting characters who seemed determined to sabotage our happiness. It was a way to mask the pain, to keep moving forward when everything felt like it was falling apart. Righteous vengeance, too, bubbled beneath the surface. There were moments when I fantasized about turning the tables on Mark and Emma, of exposing their affair in ways that would make their lives as complicated as mine had become. But revenge never satisfied. It only left me feeling more hollow, more disconnected from the person I used to be. Introspection became unavoidable. I questioned my own role in the breakdown of our marriage. Had I been too distant, too consumed by my freelance career to nurture the relationship? These thoughts were bitter pills to swallow, but they were necessary for growth. Healing wasn't just about forgiving Mark. It was about understanding myself and what I truly wanted. The impact of the affair rippled out to everyone involved. Mark's career took a hit as gossip swirled through the office. His reputation, once stellar, now bore the scars of personal failure. Emma, too, faced her own consequences. The professional camaraderie she once enjoyed turned into a minefield of mistrust and whispered judgments. Our mutual friends became reluctant participants in our drama, unsure of where their loyalties lay. As for me, the betrayal was a catalyst for transformation. I realized that my life had become a series of projects and deadlines, each one taking precedence over the moments that truly mattered. The affair forced me to reassess my priorities, to find a balance between my career and my personal life. It was a painful lesson, but one that ultimately led to growth and self-discovery. Mark and I eventually decided to part ways. It was a mutual decision, albeit a heartbreaking one. We couldn't ignore the cracks that had formed, the distances that had grown too wide to bridge. In the end, we both needed to find our own paths, separate from the tangled web of our failed marriage. Reflecting on the experience, I can't help but chuckle at the absurdity of it all. Life is messy, relationships are complicated, and people make questionable decisions. Mark's affair was a turning point, a moment that shattered my world, but also paved the way for a new beginning. I learned that resilience isn't about never falling, but about finding the strength to rise after a fall. There's a certain dark humor in betrayal. It's like being handed a plot twist you never saw coming, forcing you to improvise when all you wanted was a predictable script. I became the protagonist of my own redemption story, navigating the treacherous waters of infidelity with a mix of sarcasm and determination. I found solace in unexpected places, late-night walks, new friendships, and the simple joy of reclaiming my own happiness. Vengeance, in its purest form, never satisfied. But the desire for it was a testament to my own sense of justice, my need to see the balance restored. Instead of seeking revenge, I chose to focus on rebuilding my life, on finding peace amidst the chaos. It wasn't an easy journey, but it was a necessary one. The affair had a profound impact on all of us. Mark was left to pick up the pieces of his shattered career and the remnants of a marriage that couldn't withstand the strain. Emma, too, had to face the fallout, both professionally and personally. And I had to confront my own vulnerabilities, my fears, and my capacity for forgiveness, even if it was just for myself. In the end, Project Phoenix wasn't just about a corporate initiative. It was a metaphor for rebirth and renewal. From the ashes of betrayal, I emerged stronger, wiser, and more attuned to the complexities of human emotions. Life moved on, as it always does, and I embraced the uncertainty with a newfound sense of resilience. Looking back, the affair was a turning point, a catalyst for change that forced me to reevaluate what truly mattered. It was a painful lesson in trust, communication, and the fragility of relationships. But it was also a reminder that even in the darkest moments, there's potential for growth and healing. Mark and Emma moved on with their lives, each carrying their own burdens and lessons from the affair. I, too, found my path, carving out a space where my career and personal life could coexist without overshadowing one another. It wasn't a perfect resolution, but it was an authentic one, just like life itself. So here I am, sharing my story with you, hoping that it resonates with anyone who's ever faced betrayal or loss. Relationships are messy, emotions are tangled, and life rarely follows the script we envision. But through it all, we find ways to adapt, to grow, and to laugh, even when the jokes are at our own expense. Cheating isn't just about two people breaking vows. It's about the intricate dance of human connection, the push and pull of desires, and the inevitable imperfections that make us who we are. Mark's affair with Emma was a chapter in my life that I'd rather forget, but it's also a chapter that taught me invaluable lessons about love, resilience, and the importance of self-worth. In the grand tapestry of life, our threads intertwine in unexpected ways, creating patterns that are both beautiful and flawed. My story isn't unique. Infidelity is a common thread in the human experience, one that brings out the best and worst in us. But what sets our stories apart is how we choose to respond, how we pick ourselves up and move forward despite the pain. As I sit here, reflecting on the past, I can't help but feel a sense of closure. The anger has subsided, replaced by a quiet understanding that life is too short to dwell on the past. I embrace the future with open arms, ready to create new memories and build relationships grounded in honesty, trust, and mutual respect. Humor remains my steadfast ally, helping me navigate the complexities of emotions with a light-hearted perspective. After all, what's the point of enduring heartache if you can't find a way to laugh through it? It's not about minimizing the pain, but about acknowledging it and finding strength in vulnerability. Righteous vengeance may have crossed my mind, but I realized that true power lies in forgiveness, not for them, but for myself. Letting go of the bitterness allows me to reclaim my peace, to move forward without the weight of resentment dragging me down. It's a liberating feeling, one that I never thought I'd experience so soon after the betrayal. Introspection has become a daily practice, a way to stay connected to my own needs and desires. I've learned to prioritize my well-being, to set boundaries, and to communicate more openly in my relationships. It's a continuous journey, one that requires patience and self-compassion, but it's a journey I'm committed to taking. The affair was a pivotal moment, a test of our marriage that we ultimately failed. But it was also a catalyst for personal growth, forcing me to confront my own vulnerabilities and rediscover my strength. I'm no longer the person who allowed herself to be sidelined by a demanding career and a complacent relationship. I've become someone who advocates for her own happiness, someone who understands that self-love is the foundation of any meaningful relationship. In sharing my story, I hope to shed light on the complexities of infidelity, the tangled emotions it evokes, and the paths to healing that lie beyond the initial pain. It's a story of loss and recovery, of humor and heartache, of betrayal and forgiveness. It's a reminder that even in our darkest moments, there's potential for light, and that sometimes the most profound transformations come from the most unexpected sources. So here I stand, a little wiser, a little stronger, and a lot more cautious when it comes to matters of the heart. I've learned that relationships require constant nurturing, open communication, and a willingness to adapt as life changes. Mark and Emma's affair was a wake-up call, a harsh reminder that the grass isn't always greener on the other side, and that true fulfillment comes from within. As I move forward, I carry with me the lessons learned from this experience. I embrace the uncertainty of the future, knowing that whatever comes my way, I have the resilience to handle it. The affair may have been a painful chapter, but it's also a testament to my ability to overcome adversity and emerge on the other side, ready to embrace whatever life throws at me next. In the end, it's not about the betrayal or the pain. It's about the journey to find oneself amidst the chaos. It's about discovering that even when everything falls apart, there's a way to rebuild, to find joy in the small moments, and to laugh at the absurdity of it all. Life is unpredictable, relationships are fragile, and emotions are complex. But through it all, we find ways to navigate the storm and come out stronger on the other side. So here's to Project Phoenix. May we all rise from our own ashes, whatever form they may take, and find the resilience to create something beautiful from the wreckage. After all, if there's one thing I've learned, it's that life's messiest moments often lead to the most profound transformations.